Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. There's been a lot of talk of Malcolm lately. Malcolm made a big play yesterday in Super Bowl 49 to intercept Russell Wilson's 21st pass on February 1st. Malcolm was wearing the number 21 as well. In Super Bowl 48, it was Malcolm Smith of the Seahawks who won the MVP, an unlikely candidate. And all this Malcolm talk reminds me about Malcolm X, someone who I've written about on my blog for quite a while. And someone who deserves a post. So let's get into it. Let's start with the name gematria of Malcolm X. Actually, let's not start there. Let's start with Malcolm X's assassin, who was given a 44-year prison sentence. Very curious. Why is that curious? Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4th, 4-4. The first president to die in office died on 4-4, April 4th. Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC, at least so the story goes. The word kill sums to 44, with that 11 and 9 next to it. Currently, we have the 44th president, Barack Hussein Obama, who ran on hope, another word with 44 gematria. And Malcolm X, his assassin, was given a 44-year prison sentence. It's not just that. He also had this name Talmage X, which has a Pythagorean gematria of 33, another number we so often find with coded into assassinations. Also, just look at this from our mainstream media. Here's an article from ABC News commemorating the 44-year anniversary of JFK, November 22nd, 1963. Date with 96 numerology, like the word Freemason, like the religion Satanism. Here's an article about about how 44 years earlier he was nearly assassinated in Chicago 3 weeks before he was actually assassinated. This story reveals this as new information. At the time this was new information, JFK was actually almost assassinated in Chicago 3 weeks before he actually was killed in Dallas. And why is that curious? Well, Obama, the 44th president, has ties to Chicago and Illinois, where Abe Lincoln was assassinated. Abe Lincoln died on a date of April 15th, 1865. 4 plus 15 plus 65 is 84. Obama's birthday is August 4th, 8-4. In Jewish gematria, Obama has a gematria of 84. United States of America with Pythagorean gematria sums to 84. You can go to Gematrix, type in 84, words with Jewish gematria. Obama comes out right on top. Obama, 84. Like Arab, bomb. So on top of that, we were just talking about how Abe Lincoln was assassinated in Ford's Theater. That theater was reopened for the first time after his assassination in the year 1968. The year that Abe Lincoln, in 1968, the year that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on April 4th, 4-4. The World Trade Centers would be opened 5 years later to the day, April 4th, 73. All right, so let's move on. Significance of 44 is established. Malcolm X himself has some very interesting gematria that actually ties in with the Scottish king, Malcolm III. Malcolm X with simple English gematria sums to 93, like the number of the occult religion Thelema. He was born Malcolm Little, a name with a simple English gematria of 147. What's interesting is Malcolm Butler, who made the interception in Super Bowl 49, the name Malcolm Butler also has this same gematria. He's also known as El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, more Islamic name. And this name has curious gematria. In Islam, the Quran is the holy book. It is of 114 chapters. In English gematria, S is the 19th letter, but what you do in English gematria is you multiply everything times 6. So 19 times 6 is 114. Notice that his name in Pythagorean gematria, El-Hajj and Malik, both have this 19 gematria. If it's a coded name, probably not by coincidence, probably for these specific reasons. It's all numerical ties. Malcolm X was born May 19th, 1925. This is a date with a numerology of 49. And he died February 21st, 65, a little more than 3 years before MLK, on a date with a numerology of 88. Both very curious numbers. Also from this coding of his name up here, notice the 46s. The flip of that number 46 is 64, what Thelema sums to, and Thelema is the religion that worships the number 93, like Malcolm X. Notice in his history, it was the year 46 for Malcolm X that he went to prison and learned about the Nation of Islam and became the leader that he was. And notice he separated from the Nation of Islam in 64. 18 years later, 46 is a reflection of 64. Doing things by the numbers. This leads me to believe that Malcolm X truly was an agent of the government, because this is how they have their agents operate. You know, as was Martin Luther King, a very coded name. His letter sequence is a countdown. His name gematria, all very curious. Martin Luther King Jr. with Pythagorean gematria is 116, like 911 flipped upside down. The only American to have a holiday named after him. To date. The only one. With regards to Malcolm X, Spike Lee made a movie about Malcolm X. That movie runs 3 hours and 22 minutes. Here, let's look it up on IMDb. I'll show you this. The movie runs 3 hours and 22 minutes, and it was released on November 18th, the 322nd day of the year, like Yale Skull and Bones. The name Spike is a 33 name. And here, just to verify real quick, I'll show you that November 18th is the 322nd day of the year. There it is. November 18th is the 322nd day of the year. So, in terms of doing things by the numbers, it's not only the life he lived, it's the movies that have been released about him. And I'll tell you what, Truth Seeker, as a kid, I loved this movie. We had this movie on VHS. I watched it many times. I really liked Malcolm X's character. I liked the things he said, he stood for. And I saw him for the good and the bad. And we'll get into a little video clip of that film and connect that to Obama. Remember, MLK and Malcolm X were products of the 60s. The 60s is the only decade with a gematria of 33. A lot of stuff came out of the 60s. Let's watch this little clip from the Denzel Washington movie running 3 hours and 22 minutes, released November 18th, 92, just before the year 93. Check it out.
I must emphasize at the outstart that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is not a politician. So I'm not here this afternoon as a Republican, nor as a Democrat. Not as a Mason, nor as an elk.
Well, tell us what you're here for.
Not as a Protestant, nor a Catholic. Not as a Christian, nor a Jew.
All right,
not as a Baptist, nor a Methodist. In fact, not even as an American. Because if I was an American, the problem that confronts our people today wouldn't even exist.
That's right. Now we in America, brother.
So I have to stand here today as what I was when I was born, a black man. Before there was any such thing as a Republican or a Democrat, we were black. Before there was any such thing as a Mason or an elk, we were black. Before there was any such thing as a Jew or a Christian, we were black people. In fact, before there was any such place as America, we were black. And after America has long passed from the scene, there will still be black people. I'm going to tell you like it really is. Every election year, these politicians are sent up here to pacify.
That's right.
They're sent here and set up here by the white man. This is what they do. They send drugs in Harlem down here to pacify us. They send alcohol down here to pacify us. They send prostitution down here to pacify us. While you can't even get drugs in Harlem without the white man's permission. You can't get prostitution in Harlem without the white man's permission. You can't get gambling in Harlem without the white man's permission. Every time you break the seal on that liquor bottle, that's a government seal you're breaking. Oh, I say it again, you've been had. You've been took. You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok. This is what he does.
So, True Seeker, because I like this movie and because I've always been paying attention, I remember when Obama was on the campaign trail and he was using the phrase hoodwinked and bamboozled, and I'm pretty sure he took it right from this movie. Here's one of those times.
These attacks. I'm sure we'll see more in the next 24 days, but here's the thing. They're not going to work this time. The times are too serious. The stakes are too high. People will not be hoodwinked. You will not be bamboozled.
Boo! Oh man, True Seeker. I don't know how people were fooled by this guy. If people just would pay attention, they wouldn't be fooled at all. This guy on the campaign trail back before he was president was saying all the right things about the legislation or the vote that was going to be on immunity for the telecom companies. He was saying we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it. But then when it came time to vote, he voted the wrong way. He voted the exact opposite of his rhetoric. And that's all Obama's ever been, is a double speaker who doesn't mean anything he says, it seems. Just reading the teleprompter. Giving us a lot of hot air. Let's close by looking at some Malcolm X quotes, because he has a lot of good ones. You know, Malcolm X, good and bad. The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And that's the power, because they control the minds of the masses. And isn't it oh so true? I mean, that's what my blog's really about, is trying to expose just how they are doing this and how blatant their methods are. There is no better adversity. Every defeat, every heartbreak, every loss contains its own seed, its own lesson on how to improve your performance the next time. 100%. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to make mistakes. You just got to improve and learn from it. And my blog's a lot about that. I mean, if you go back and look through my videos, I've been wrong about some things. It's okay. I've learned from it. The future belongs to those who prepare for it today, of course. Even the Illuminati tell us this in their halftime celebration shows. Remember the prepare message from 48? Just because nothing happened this year doesn't mean you should go to sleep. These people work overtime. You have to think about how long they were putting out their imagery of the World Trade Center destruction. They're putting it out for decades and decades. For those of us who are awake and see what they're foreshadowing with the Hoover Dam and other places, it truly could still be years and years away. We might be way ahead of our time. But just because our eyes are open and it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean we're wrong. So don't let anybody tell you that. Sorry about that interruption. Let's continue by looking at this Malcolm X quote. This is one of my favorites. If you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. And it's just such a true quote, and it's one that the masses need to wake up to, because this is exactly what they're doing. They're praising, celebrating, trusting the people who they should not, who are responsible for the continued oppression. You know, I'm someone who sees that we need to stop voting. We need to stop validating a corrupt, predetermined system that truly does oppress us. The masses, they don't feel that way. They buy into the rhetoric that if you don't vote, you're not expressing yourself, you're not contributing to your democracy. It's because they're not taking the time to see the hoax they're participating in. They're just moving along on the conveyor belt without thinking. They haven't taken the time to think as deeply as the Malcolm X's of the world have. And they haven't listened carefully enough to what the Malcolm X's of the world have said. And realize I say this recognizing that Malcolm X likely was a government agent. That said, these government agents such as Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Gandhi, and a whole lot more, likely including pop stars such as John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and others, all of their message isn't bad. A lot of the times these people are delivering truth. such as this message. I mean, this message is truth. But at the same time, Malcolm X, for part of his life, helped contribute to the racial divide. It's dualism, like what the Freemasons prosper on. Dualism, the division of something conceptually into two opposed or contrasted aspects, or the state of being so divided. You know, Malcolm X, in a quote like this, it's a quote I totally understand, but the dualism comes through. Be peaceful, be courteous, obey the law, respect everyone, but if someone puts his hand on you, send him to the cemetery. So there's an exception, and then that exception is everything else that you stand for. And in a way, I get that. But, you know, when these messages aren't handled with the right care, it can lead to more problems. And I feel like that's how they do us, with these types of people who give us enough truth to hook us, but then also enough of the wrong stuff to lead us astray. And here's another example of this, truth seeker. Are you familiar with Eisenhower's farewell speech where he invented the term military-industrial complex? I always thought in that speech that Eisenhower was trying to alert the country in a sincere way to what was coming so that we could wake up and potentially stop it. But now looking back and understanding gematria, I see that really all he was doing was taunting us. This term that he supposedly coined, military-industrial complex, has a simple English gematria of 322, like the number from the Spike Lee movie running 3 hours and 22 minutes about Malcolm X, like the date it was released on. Yale's Skull and Bones, they represent themselves with the number 322. And, you know, from Eisenhower to Malcolm X to many more, these agents have a double-sided message. So, just wanted to share this research about Malcolm X. From the curiosities of his assassination to the name Malcolm X to everything else we discussed. So, until next time, Truth Seeker, thank you as always.